That person who annoys you the most, the coworker who's arrogant, the friend who's selfish, the stranger who's rude. What if I told you they're showing you exactly what you're becoming? Carl Jung discovered something terrifying about human psychology. The traits you despise in others are the very traits growing inside you. You push them away, you judge them, you swear you'll never be like them, and that's precisely why you will. This isn't just psychology, this is your future. In the next 15 minutes, you're going to understand why the people you hate are mirrors, why your strongest criticism reveals your deepest fear, and most importantly, why the only way to avoid becoming what you despise is to stop running from it. Jung called this the shadow, and right now, it's writing the script of who you're becoming. The shadow mirror. Think about someone who genuinely bothers you, not just annoys you, someone whose behavior makes your blood boil. Maybe it's their arrogance, their neediness, their dishonesty, their selfishness. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Jung spent decades studying the unconscious mind, and he discovered something that most people refuse to accept. The intensity of your reaction to someone else's behavior is directly proportional to how much that trait exists within you. It's called projection. Your psyche takes the parts of yourself you've rejected and throws them onto other people. That person isn't just being annoying. They're holding up a mirror. And you hate what you see because you've spent your entire life pretending it doesn't exist. The arrogant person triggers you because you've suppressed your own desire for recognition. The needy person bothers you because you've buried your own vulnerability. The traits you judge most harshly are the traits you refuse to own. But here's where it gets worse. What you resist. Jung had a phrase that should terrify you. What you resist persists. When you actively push something away from your conscious awareness, it doesn't disappear. It goes underground, into your shadow, and from there it starts growing. Think of it like a pressure cooker. Every time you deny a part of yourself, you're adding pressure. Every time you judge someone for being selfish, you're adding pressure to your own suppressed selfishness. Every time you criticize someone for being weak, you're compressing your own unacknowledged weakness. If this is helping you see yourself differently, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. There's so much more to uncover. The research is clear. A 2018 study in the Journal of Personality showed that people who strongly rejected certain traits in others were significantly more likely to unconsciously exhibit those exact traits. Resistance creates manifestation. The harder you push against something, the more energy you give it. And energy in the psyche always demands expression. But this leads us to something even more disturbing, the projection trap. Here's how projection actually works in your daily life. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You think they are an aggressive, selfish jerk. But what's really happening? Your shadow is having a moment of recognition. It sees itself, and your conscious mind immediately rejects it by externalizing the judgment. Denial. You're not aggressive. They are. You're not selfish. They are. This happens hundreds of times a day, in meetings when someone talks too much, in relationships when your partner disappoints you, on social media when strangers trigger you. Each projection is a clue, a breadcrumb leading back to something you've exiled from yourself. Jung worked with a patient who constantly complained about dishonest people. She saw liars everywhere, colleagues, friends, family. Everyone was deceiving her. Through analysis, Jung helped her realize she had been lying to herself for decades, about her marriage, about her career, about who she really was. The liar she kept finding was the liar she refused to see in the mirror. And what if I told you that projection isn't just about individuals? Collective shadow. Societies project too. Countries, political groups, religions. Jung witnessed this during World War II. He watched an entire nation project its shadow onto others. The traits Germany refused to own in itself became the traits it violently persecuted in others. Mass projection leads to mass destruction. But you don't need to look at history. Look at today. Look at how groups demonize each other, how political tribes see pure evil in the other side, how online mobs find monsters to destroy. The psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious. It happens outside as fate. When millions of people refuse to acknowledge their own capacity for cruelty, selfishness, or ignorance, that energy has to go somewhere. It gets projected outward, and then it gets acted upon. Unconscious shadows create real violence. The hatred you see in the world started as hatred people couldn't face in themselves. This brings us to something personal, something about your own becoming. The becoming. There's a predictable pattern in human development that Jung observed. In your 20s, you build an identity. You decide who you are and who you're not. You reject certain traits and embrace others. You become a person. But here's the trap. The traits you reject don't disappear, they just hide and grow. By your 30s or 40s, something strange starts happening. The controlled person becomes impulsive. The independent person becomes needy. The patient person explodes in rage. The mask you built starts cracking, and what's underneath? Everything you pushed away. Jung called this the individuation crisis. It's when your shadow demands to be seen, and if you keep refusing, if you keep projecting and denying, the shadow doesn't just stay hidden, it takes over. Not suddenly. Gradually. You become the thing you spent your whole life running from. Transformation. But there's a specific mechanism that accelerates this becoming. Emotional charge. Pay attention to your emotional reactions. Not all negative reactions are projections. Sometimes people are genuinely behaving badly, but there's a difference between noticing bad behavior and being triggered by it. When you notice something, you observe it. You might respond appropriately. Then you move on. When you're triggered, something else happens. Your body activates, your thoughts spiral, you can't let it go. That emotional charge is the indicator. That electricity running through you when you encounter certain behaviors. That's your shadow waving at you. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. A study from the University of Zurich found that emotional intensity in moral judgments correlated strongly with personal history around those behaviors. In other words, the things that outrage you most are often things you've done, wanted to do, or fear you might do. Triggers reveal truth. And speaking of truth, what if I told you that your greatest criticisms hold the key to your greatest growth? Golden shadow. Here's something most people miss about Jung's shadow work. The shadow isn't just negative traits. It's everything you've rejected about yourself, including your gold. Your greatest strengths might be hiding in your shadow. That person you admire too much. That's projection too. The creativity you see in others but deny in yourself. The courage you celebrate in them but suppress in yourself. The passion you're drawn to but afraid to express. Jung called this the golden shadow. The parts of your potential you've disowned because they felt too big, too scary, too much. Maybe someone told you not to shine. Maybe success felt dangerous. Maybe you decided it was safer to stay small, so you buried your gifts in shadow, and now you project them onto others. You become their fan instead of becoming yourself. The genius you worship in others is the genius you refuse to claim. But wait, because what comes next changes everything about how you can actually use this knowledge. Shadow integration. So how do you stop becoming what you hate? You don't fight the shadow, you integrate it. Integration doesn't mean acting on every dark impulse. It means acknowledging that those impulses exist, owning them, making them conscious. 1. Notice your triggers and write them down. 2. Ask what trait you're judging. 3. Find where that trait lives in you. 4. Accept that it's part of your nature. 5. Choose how to express it consciously. This is the work, not denial, not projection, not endless self-improvement to become more perfect, but radical acceptance of your wholeness. I'd rather be whole than good. When you integrate your selfishness, you can be appropriately self-interested without guilt. When you integrate your anger, you can set boundaries without rage. When you integrate your weakness, you can ask for help without shame. Acceptance creates transformation. The paradox is stunning. The moment you stop fighting a trait is the moment it stops controlling you. But there's one more piece to this puzzle. The third option. Most people think they have two options with their shadow: suppress it or become it. But Jung discovered a third way: transcendence, When you hold the tension between your conscious identity and your shadow, without choosing one or the other, something new emerges. Jung called it the transcendent function. It's not you plus your shadow. It's a new you that contains both but is defined by neither. From opposition comes transformation. Think about someone who integrated their aggression. They didn't become aggressive. They didn't stay passive. They became assertive. Something new. Something that couldn't exist without holding both opposites. Your opposite isn't your enemy. It's your missing piece. This is why the people who trigger you most are your greatest teachers. They're not obstacles to your growth. They are your growth. Black and white become something entirely new. And this brings us to the final revelation, your shadow gift. Let me leave you with this. The person you hate most in the world is offering you a gift, not because they are enlightened, not because their behavior is acceptable, but because your reaction to them is showing you exactly what you need to integrate. The meeting with oneself is, at first, the meeting with one's own shadow. Every judgment is information. Every trigger is a teacher. Every projection is a map to buried treasure within yourself. You have a choice right now. You can keep projecting, keep judging, keep running from your shadow, and you will slowly, inevitably become the very thing you despise. Or you can wake up. You can start the work of integration. You can stop fighting yourself and start knowing yourself. The shadow you've been running from, it's not your enemy. It's your wholeness waiting to be claimed. Jung spent his entire life exploring the darkness within the human psyche, not to condemn it, but to illuminate it, because he understood something profound. The darkness you refuse to face becomes the destiny you cannot escape, but the darkness you embrace becomes the wisdom that sets you free. You don't have to become what you hate. You have to understand why you hate it. Start today. Notice your triggers. Question your judgments. Welcome your shadow home. If you made it this far, comment shadow integrated if you're ready to stop running and start becoming whole. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this changed how you see yourself, hit subscribe. Understanding your psyche is the work of a lifetime. See you in the next video.